Afternoon. Calling all council members to the dais, please. Good afternoon. I'd like to call the January 7th, 2026 special meeting of the Scottsdale City Council to order. City Clerk Ben Lane, may I please have our first roll call of 2026?
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Lisa Borowski,
Present.
Vice Mayor Adam Quasman, Council members Jan DeBoscus, Barry Graham, here. Kathy Littlefield,
Here.
Marianne McAllen,
Present.
and Solange Whitehead.
Here.
City Manager Greg Caton,
Here.
Interim City Attorney Louis Centella,
Here.
City Treasurer Sonia Andrews,
Here.
Acting City Auditor Lake Clough,
Here.
and the clerk is present. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Clerk Lane. And thank you all for being here. I'd like to express my sincere thank you to my council colleagues for being at this meeting. As many of you know, this is a special meeting, so it wasn't on our regular agenda. So I'm thrilled to see everyone could attend, and I'm thrilled to see all of you here tonight. Happy New Year, and we're off to a great 2026 here at City Hall, and I'm excited about what the future holds. And let's get started. For the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd like to ask Councilwoman McAllen to lead us. Thank you very much. As is always the case, during tonight's meeting, the council may make a motion to recess into executive session in order to obtain legal advice on any applicable item on the agenda. And if authorized by council, the executive session would be held immediately and would not be open to the public. The public meeting would, of course, resume following that executive session if it happened. Like I said, thank you all for being here. Welcome to City Hall 2026, and welcome to this special meeting where we are discussing all things Old Town and downtown Scottsdale. When I was elected by the residents of Scottsdale, and prior to that, I promised to throw my full support behind a revitalization effort in Old Town and to support Old Town and the merchants and property owners that do business there. We've encountered some struggles over the last year that indicate to us, or at least to me, that Old Town proprietors and downtown business owners feel like the city, we at City Hall are not listening to them, and they are not being adequately informed of what's going on in downtown, either before or after it happens. So this meeting is to let you know, rest assured, I am listening to all of you, and I am committed, along with my council colleagues, to focusing on Old Town and downtown to make it the best downtown core in the country. And there's a lot of work we can do, and I'd like to do that together with the stakeholders. This summit is meant to, well, recently I should add, there was a marketing contract that came up before us, and it was voted down, and that was for the PR efforts directly tied to Old Town and downtown marketing. And we heard a lot of disappointment about that, but let's use that as a blessing in disguise and work together to really strengthen the bonds between City Hall, city staff, and the people that really do business in Old Town, and our residents who visit and enjoy Old Town. And together, I think we can make magical things happen in our Old Town area. And this summit is meant to address just those ideas. To bring city leaders, merchants, property owners, and tourism experts together for a conversation about our collective future. Tonight, you're going to hear insights and ideas from knowledgeable and respected voices in this space. We're going to start with Joan Fidala, of course, our Scottsdale historian, followed by tourism innovator Michael Lee and parking solutions expert Chris Milkey. So I'm excited to hear from them tonight. I think you will be too. And following those presentations, City Council will be asked to consider forming a downtown Scottsdale task force, which would be a representative group of stakeholders of the 4 key districts of Old Town. And this task force will help us refine, ideally, the downtown character area plan and strengthen marketing efforts that keep Scottsdale very competitive and cutting edge. The time has come to start listening to the residents and property owners and business owners who make this city the best in the nation. This is about developing and strengthening partnerships. It's about ensuring businesses and cultural assets that define our city continue to flourish. If you care about the future of downtown Scottsdale, I encourage you to share your ideas with us and city staff and consider becoming a part of, hopefully, the task force that we will put together. Together, we will keep Old Town Scottsdale vibrant and thriving, not just for today, but for generations to come. And before we begin, I'm going to share a video message from a prominent Old Town Scottsdale business owner who unfortunately could not be here, but I'm sure many of you, if not all of you, know who she is. Sam, if you wouldn't mind teeing up that video for us, it's very brief.
Hello, I'm Barbara Peters. I'm the owner of the Poison Pen Bookstore. I established it in Scottsdale on Main Street in 1989, moved it here on Goldwater in 1999 because some of the reasons to have the store originally on Main Street had already gone away thanks to an unfortunate remodel of Main Street, which turned it, I thought, from being Western into some kind of version of Miami, but also eradicated considerable amount of parking. And at that time, we were told as tenants that we had no voice at all in what happened. So I am a supporter of a downtown task force that will allow tenants, not just landlords and small businesses, to have a say in the direction that Scottsdale is moving.
Thank you. And I show you that video because it represents the information and feedback that I personally have been receiving from a wide swath of business operators and owners in Old Town. And so given all the feedback that we've heard from my staff, me and my staff have heard, and I'm sure many others on this dais and also throughout city staff, given all of the information we've received, I think it's time to bring us together so that we can hear voices like Joan's and those that'll speak to us tonight and consider them and take action. So without further ado, I'm going to move right to the presentations. We've got a lot of information to share, and I would like to call upon Scottsdale historian, Joan Fadala, to kick us off. Thank you, Joan, and welcome.
Thank you so much, Mayor, Council, my friends and neighbors, and Swifties, because I'm about to take you on the Eras tour of Old Town Scottsdale. So over the next few minutes, I want to talk a little bit about how Old Town Scottsdale specifically has evolved from a farm-supporting desert crossroads in the middle of nowhere to a global tourist, business, culinary, arts, and residential destination that the world is coming to. There's always a beginning, and the beginning dates back almost 2,000 years, and it was all about water. The Hohokam people lived in the area of Old Town as much as 2,000 years ago, disappeared around 1450 AD, and really our modern beginnings started in 1885 when W.J. Murphy built the Arizona Canal and provided water for the development that initially then became a small, tiny settlement called Scottsdale. We really kicked off a couple of years later when Army Chaplain Major Winfield Scott and his wife Helen, Winfield had just visited Phoenix, the Salt River Valley, in February of 1888, liked what he saw, and talked Helen into using their meager savings to homestead about 640 acres at the corner of what's now Indian School and Scottsdale Road. They paid $2.40 an acre, and that was really a hard sell for them because times were tough, but they had access to the Arizona Canal, and since he grew up as a farmer before he was in the Army, he started the valley's citrus industry. He grew all kinds of crops, both food crops as well as raising a few types of livestock, and really tried to emphasize other people to come here for the agricultural opportunities that were available along the Arizona Canal. So my first era on our eras tour is the founding era of Old Town, and that's basically the 1890s to the 1920s. Again, we were a very modest community of hardworking people. We had, again, dairy farms. We grew alfalfa. And then by 1914, at the beginning of World War I, when Egyptian cotton was hard to come by, Pima cotton became our main cash crop, and we even had a cotton gin located at Brown and 2nd Street in downtown Scottsdale. Again, we were a very quiet community, and no paved streets and really no infrastructure. But we did have a few firsts in those years. We had our first school open in 1896. Adjacent to, you can see in the middle left photo, in 1909 we needed a bigger school, and so the Little Red Schoolhouse was built. The bottom photo is our first business, which was the first general store and post office, which is at the corner of Brown and Main, right where Bischoff's is now. We had our first church building, 1918, and of course we had other farm-supporting businesses, like the Cavaliers Blacksmith Shop, which opened in 1910. I might also mention that we were a real dry community, and I'm not talking about the climate. I'm talking about the fact that the Arizona Anti-Saloon League was founded in downtown Scottsdale, and many of the business and property owners actually put deed restrictions on their properties that alcohol would never be sold in Scottsdale. So if you're heading to happy hour after this meeting, remember that's one of the things that hasn't prevailed in Old Town Scottsdale. And we also had our first cars, since we'll be talking about parking tonight, showed up sometime in the 1910s, but really there was no designated parking in Old Town Scottsdale. You just kind of parked willy-nilly. We also had the seeds sown for some of our most important industries today. We had our first tourism, our first healthcare, and our first arts come to Scottsdale. We had our first boarding house open in 1897, which morphed a few years later into Graves Guest Ranch, which was actually a threefer. It was a guest ranch for tourism. People would come for the whole season and stay there in those little cottages that you see. They also would come to restore their health in the dry climate with a lot of access to fresh foods here. And we also accommodated people that were moving here, and they used the Graves Guest Ranch as a temporary lodging facility. I always say, too, if I were ill and my doctor told me to move to a warm, dry climate, I'm not sure I would pick a place called Graves Guest Ranch, but they did. We also had the Adobe House, which opened in the 20s. And again, most of the accommodations for tourists were very small guest ranches and only open usually November through April because, again, this was before air conditioning. We also had our first artists come and the beginnings of our art community. Marjorie Thomas, shown there with Winfield Scott's mule Old Maud, came here from Boston in 1909 and set up the first artist studio here. And she was followed a few years later by a very accomplished artist from Chicago, Jessie Benton Evans, and more artists followed. They had kind of a hard go at the beginning because we had no museums, we had no galleries, we had no art events. In fact, the only art event in the whole Arizona territory was at the state fair. So then we move a little bit forward to the next era, the Depression and wartime era. We did lose some farms. Our one and only bank closed during the Depression. You see that aerial view of about 1936 of what Scottsdale, Old Town Scottsdale looked like, and it was mainly 3 streets: Scottsdale Road, Main Street, and Brown Avenue. And it was a mixture, if you can see it at all, of houses and small businesses, again, mostly directed towards supporting our farm and agricultural industry. But we also added a few things in Old Town. Certainly, one of our points of pride is the old Adobe Mission, now listed on the National Register of Historic Places. And we had our first cafes and our first bars because we finally allowed alcohol after Prohibition had been repealed. So then came the war years, a kind of a transitional period for Scottsdale. The little bit of tourism that we had really died down because of rationing, as well as so many people concentrated on war duties. But we did accommodate war workers and military that were stationed at what's now Scottsdale Airport, Thunderbird II Airfield, at a housing development, which is right now where the Museum of the West is, and that was called Thunderbird Homes. That's that photo in the lower right. And the people of Scottsdale really, as always, were very engaged in the community and helping each other, both during the Depression and wartime. In fact, we set a national record for war bond purchases here in Scottsdale. But as some would call it the golden age, I call it the post-war, the most western town era. And this was a brainstorm that merchant and future mayor Malcolm White had. He and other merchants in Old Town thought that they had so much opportunity once the war was over. People were so hungry to travel. They'd spent the war years watching Western movies, and the whole country was clamoring for a Western experience. So Malcolm White decided that we needed a slogan to help jumpstart tourism, and he came up with the Westmost Western Town. The merchants voluntarily not only just redesigned their buildings in a Western motif, they even renamed them. A gas station became an auto livery stable, and things like that, where the businesses took on kitschy names. And really, we had authentic Western roots because, after all, we had cattle ranches, we had cattle drives and whatnot, so we were truly an authentic Western town ever since the Brown's Ranch and DC Ranch opened in the 1910s, but we didn't look like Hollywood West. And so that's why we came up with a slogan with the cowboy sign that still stands on the corner of Scottsdale and Main since 1952. And we also, with thanks to the brand new Chamber of Commerce that started in 1947, they acted as a pseudo-government because we didn't have paved streets, we didn't have events, we didn't have tourism promotion, and also we needed a body to start having public meetings to talk about maybe incorporating so that we would have some infrastructure available to people that were moving here, thanks to the GI Bill and their thirst for becoming a Western. Also, with more and more people driving here and spending shorter times here, or finally being able to buy a car when cars were produced again after World War II, we suddenly went from that willy-nilly parking situation to needing designated parking spaces. And one of the first places to implement parking spaces was Pima Plaza, when that was first built in the early 1950s. And I might say, and this is from my resident's perspective, not necessarily from my historian's perspective, I think a decision was made early on never to have parking meters in Scottsdale, and I surely hope that continues. I hope you all agree. So moving on, again, we really were desperate for some infrastructure. And so finally, a petition drive was held in early 1951. We'll be celebrating this throughout this year, our 75th anniversary of incorporation. And the petition drive among the property owners was so successful that the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors declared Scottsdale, which was Old Town, officially incorporated on June 25th, 1951. Our population was on less than a half a square mile, which is the nucleus of Old Town now, with a population of just over 2,000 people. And the town council was actually appointed by the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors, and they got to work right away. One of the first things they did was get fire service through a contract with Rural Fire. And also in that map in the lower right, they put together a zoning map and zoning for the small space that was downtown Scottsdale. They implemented a street paving plan, and as they were looking at the zoning, they were realizing that as every year passed since the end of the war, we were having less farming and ranching, and we were turning those farming and ranching areas in Old Town and around Old Town into subdivisions and business locations. This westmost western town era also provided a lot of fun. This was when some of our events happened, but also the first attraction really for tourists as well as new residents was the fact that we were the arts, crafts, and fashion center of the entire southwestern United States. We had working artist studios throughout the Old Town area. In fact, the Arizona Craftsman Building, which is now where Bischoff's is at Scottsdale in Maine, that had working artists in it that even attracted former First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt, who then put us on the national radar when she wrote about how wonderful the arts and crafts were in Old Town Scottsdale after she visited both in 1946, 1947, wrote about it in her national column, My Day. We had fashion shows. The one in the lower left is one of my favorite all-time photos. This happened 75 years ago this week when Goldwater's department store brought Harper's Bazaar models out on a train from New York City and premiered the latest fashions of that year, which were called Sunset Pinks. And that runway ran all the way from Scottsdale Road to Brown Avenue, and you could see people were even sitting on the rooftops enjoying that fashion show. And we had fashion shows almost every week during the 1950s in downtown Scottsdale. And other than the Sunset Pinks one, almost all the fashion shows were featuring fashions that were being made in the arts and crafts studios in Old Town Scottsdale. And there on the upper right, you can see some of those craftsmen at the Kiva Craft Center that had opened on Fifth Avenue, Lloyd Kiva and many others that were, again, producing art and pottery, jewelry, leather goods, etc. And also, to further our art image, we started opening galleries that featured not only the things being made or produced artistically here in Scottsdale, but elsewhere. In the lower corner, you see Leo and Buck Saunders, who opened one of the first art galleries, the Trading Post on Brown. And they featured a then little-known artist named Ted DeGrazia, who came up from Tucson, and 1,500 people attended his art premiere at that gallery, which again, for little old Scottsdale, was a heck of a lot of people. During that golden era of the westmost western town, tourism also got a big jump. We went from a scattering of guest ranches to having our first 2 year-round resorts, the Valley Ho, which of course is still very much a great location in Old Town Scottsdale, but the Safari Resort as well. And because these were car-oriented, short-stay hotels rather than having somebody come and stay at a guest ranch for an entire season, People wanted something off property to go to, so this really spurred our restaurant industry as well, and restaurants opened throughout the Old Town area, many with a Western theme like Lulu Bell, others with a kind of a sports theme like the Pink Pony, and many others. And then we also started some of our most beloved events during this era. The Sunshine Festival started in 1951 as a kickoff to the tourist season. A couple of years later, the name was changed to the Parada del Sol, and we look forward to that every year. Started out as and morphed into the world's longest horse-drawn parade, and again, it's such a beloved event. We used to have the Miracle of the Roses pageant every year, and that has been revived in recent years in early December. And of course, we landed a spring training team when the Baltimore Orioles started playing their spring training games here in 1956 at a brand new ballpark that we had opened. We also had Western Week, we had art shows, and we had the National Indian Arts Exhibition that took place in Scottsdale, down Old Town throughout those years. We also then had so many new residents moving into Old Town and the surrounding areas that it really drove the need for not just tourism businesses and not so much those farm-oriented businesses anymore, but a whole different type of need. We started having franchises and chains come to Scottsdale rather than just the one-off merchants and art galleries and art studios downtown. In fact, we opened a first Woolworths in 1959 at the corner of Scottsdale and Main, and you'll recognize that building as the Legacy Gallery today. With all those new residents, they needed even more shopping, so Fashion Square opened in 1961. You'll see that at the lower left. We finally got a hospital in 1962 when City Hospital of Scottsdale opened on Osborne, quickly became Scottsdale Baptist Hospital, then Scottsdale Memorial Hospital, Scottsdale Healthcare, and now, of course, Honor Health. And then, believe it or not, from the 1910s all the way up to the 1960s, we had a number of car dealerships and car lots all throughout the Old Town area. But when Gray Madison went to expand his car dealership at Camelback and Scottsdale Road, the new city council did not approve the zoning. So that started the exodus of car dealerships away from the Old Town area to the McDowell corridor. And that, again, had an impact on downtown Scottsdale. The 1970s and 80s were the infrastructure and growth area. We'd had in the late 1960s the Scottsdale Town Enrichment Program, and one of its big initiatives was to create a purpose-built civic center that would include City Hall, the Civic Center Library, eventually the Center for the Arts and other buildings, as well as commercial properties. And throughout the early 70s, that continued to expand. It also spawned the Fine Art Commission and our public art program, as they wanted sculptures to be on the new Civic Center. And also, it also created a need for parking garages. And one of the first parking garages to open was the Civic Center garage right behind the Little Red Schoolhouse on the west side of the mall, which opened in 1974. Throughout the 80s, again, the Osborne campus in the 70s and 80s expanded not just outward, but upward. In fact, that was, I think, the first elevator that was installed in Scottsdale when they opened their towers. The Fashion Square area greatly expanded, and also we had the east and west sides of the Civic Center were merged with the underpass of Civic Center Boulevard. And then we also started the first iteration of the downtown plan in the mid-'80s, as well as the City Council adopting a canal bank study, which really was going to revitalize what had been the back door to so many businesses downtown, the Arizona Canal, and making it a destination. Took a few years to happen, but it did. We also added Old Town events such as the Art Walk, Scottsdale Arts Festival, and the Culinary Festival. I might quickly mention that during the 70s and 80s, some of the attention was drawn away from Old Town because we started annexing like crazy from the time that we incorporated in 1951 until we did our final huge annexation to the north in 1984. And so suddenly there were places like the Air Park and the McDowell Corridor and other places that were also diluting the attention away from much of what was happening in Old Town. And some might say some of the features in Old Town were kind of neglected from a lot of the attention directed elsewhere. In the 1990s and 2000s, I call this the urban and global era, because certainly with the advent of the World Wide Web, suddenly merchants and businesses in downtown, Old Town Scottsdale had global access through being able to market and sell over the internet. And also with the advent in the early 1990s, slowly but surely, there were more exits along the Loop 101 that gave the entire valley access, quick access to Old Town, to our events, to our retailers, to our restaurants, and so many of the features, also giving employers opportunities to bring employees from all over the valley to work in Old Town Scottsdale. Our waterfront certainly was a huge leap forward from that original canal bank study, finally then resulting in the north bank of the Arizona Canal, opening in 2006, and the following year in 2007, South Bridge. In 2008, ESPN, throughout the week leading up to Super Bowl, broadcast right there from the Marshall Way Bridge, which was, again, another national feather in our cap. And although some called it a white elephant when the Galleria opened in the early 1990s, and only operated about 18 months and sat vacant. Fortunately, we turned that lemon into lemonade and brought about the Galleria Corporate Center, which was really important from the merchants and restaurants and other businesses standpoint, because it was giving them built-in customers that needed to eat lunch or dinner or shop. So again, we had a habit of turning lemons into lemonade. We also, during this period of being global and urban, realized that it was important to not forget our history and to start preserving things. We started the Scottsdale Historic Preservation Program in 1997. Currently, there are 28 properties on the list, 16 of which are our most beloved properties in Old Town Scottsdale, and many of those same properties are also listed on the National Register of Historic Places. We started implementing a public art program, mostly funded by private funds, to honor Scottsdale history makers like Winfield and Helen Scott and Herb Drinkwater, and even non-human things like the yearling statue that greets people as they come onto Civic Center Mall. And thanks to a youth standing right here in 1996 and lobbying the City Council, we started curbside recycling, and we also started a green building program. We have a number of those in Old Town Scottsdale, from the fire department on Indian School Road to the Museum of the West, that are LEED certified buildings. So now we come to the present. Again, this is the redevelopment and rebirth era. We've realized so many exciting things for Old Town, whether it's Western Spirit, the Museum of the West, a revitalized and revamped Civic Center that debuted a couple of years ago. We've built the new hotels like Caesars, the Canopy, Senna House, Rennie, and several others on the books. We have Canal Convergence, and we have a lot of beloved Old Town treasures that we still are so happy to patronize, whether it's Los Olivos, the Sugar Bowl, Parada del Sol, our wonderful gallery district, spring training games, and many others that have stood the test of time. So I hope this gives you an idea of how Old Town has evolved as an arts, a residential, sports, a cultural, just so many, retail, just so many aspects of Old Town Scottsdale. And this year, our 75th anniversary of Scottsdale gives us so many reasons to celebrate Old Town Scottsdale. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joan. That's a wonderful retrospective on what we have had and what we can move forward using. So next I'm going to ask Michael Lee to come up and talk to us about all things tourism. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor and Council and everybody else that came. Yeah, everything I know about tourism, Lamar asked me to do in 7 minutes, and so shouldn't be a problem. Experiences have always been at the heart of entertainment, but are now at the heart of our economy. So said Joseph Pine in a book written about 25 years ago now, called The Experience Economy. I recommend that highly to you if you're interested in tourism, if you're interested in retail, if you're interested in why experiences are important. That is what you're selling when you're in the tourism business. You're selling experiences, and that's what I do. I plan, design, and produce the guest experience. And I've done that with entertainment projects, with learning projects, and hospitality shopping projects, and I've done it in those places around the world. About as many outside the country as inside the country. When you're doing this kind of thing, you have to think about business, and you have to think about well, all the kinds of things in business that makes it a business. In addition to that, you got to have a place for the business, like a facility, and that's easy compared to some things. Building area enclosures, waterproofing, types of materials, you know, all of those kind of things. But the part that's always left out, and the part that's talked about as though it's frosting on a cake, is the show. And what is the show? Well, it's all the things that the guest sees and feels and walks away thinking or singing, and they don't sing the architecture. If we take away the facility, in fact, you have show business. And that's what I've done. In fact, Joan, thank you for the history lesson. I used to not like history at all, but now that I've got some of it, I like it better. Years ago, well, let's see, I should start out by saying, in 1805, the world changed. I don't know if you know what happened in 1805. It wasn't here, but in Rocha Bay, at the entrance to the Mediterranean, some folks there approached me and said, we have a little area that we'd like to attract tourists to. In fact, almost everybody that talks to me says, how do we increase tourism? And that's a pretty common thing to think, but then I begin to say, oh, do they really want to? Do they really want more people, or is it just the money that they want? The town of Moab in Utah asked me that about 15 or 20 years ago, and today they've got lots of people, and if you ask them, they say, we love the tourism, but it's just the people that we don't like. Well, back to Rocha Bay, they said, what can you do? And I said, do you have enough for them to do? And they said, well, yeah, they walk around, see all the shops there are. In fact, at the time this was taken, they were building more facilities. And I said, well, more facilities means more shops, but what kind of a story do people understand about this place? I said, story? Story? Oh, that's right. We have a pamphlet that we hand to them, and it tells the story. And I said, do they read the pamphlet? Well, no, a lot of people don't read the pamphlet. I said, what about if we do something, and they had about a comparable number to the people who come to Scottsdale. I think it was in those days about between 9 and 12 million people came to Rocha Bay. And why did they come? Well, they weren't coming because of the buildings. They came because they wanted a show. So this is what we proposed. A show that would take place in Rocha Bay and tell the story of, maybe some of you know it, Joan's going to know it because she's a history buff. The Battle of Trafalgar was fought off the coast of Rocha Bay in 1805. And as you recall, the British fought the French and Spanish, who ruled the world at the time, but the British won. And from that point on, in the early 1800s, until this little startup country came along called the US, the British ruled the seas. And that's the day that it happened, October 21st, I think it was, of 1805. If you put on a show, you not just hand out a pamphlet, but you make people understand the importance of what happened here. And you do it in a way that is heart-pounding, so that people are saying, yeah, yeah. You've been in shows like that. You've been at concerts like that where you can feel the music, you can see the lights, and that's what people are paying for. They're paying for an experience, and that's what they want. Nothing happened, however, at Rocha Bay. And last year, in 2024, almost last year ago, they issued a report. It was done by their Chamber of Commerce that said, the key to unlocking tourism's full potential is transport. And I thought, okay, well, they're coming along. It only took a few years for them to understand how important it was. I had hoped that they would say, show is the most important thing. A lot of times before the show, they think about facilities and physical things, so they're thinking about that. And eventually, mark my words, they're going to put a show on in Rocha Bay. They did a plan like this that shows where vehicles can move people because it's too big to walk. You can't walk around the mountain called Gibraltar and have any energy at the end of the day. It's way too much. And we proposed things like this. The trolley on the upper left-hand side was built by an old friend of mine who had been the chief structural engineer at Disney during the Epcot days, and the various other trolleys. I like the one on the top left-hand side because I think it's more authentic. I kind of don't like the look and feel, although they're very practical, and some of them run on electricity, so they're environmentally sound. Anyway, we can talk about that kind of thing. What's the takeaway from this story? Well, offering stories that are unique, the story at Rocha Bay is definitely a unique story, but the information alone is not sufficient. If you can present the story of your community, and perhaps even a larger story of the region, then more people will be interested in being here. Story is at the heart of what you're doing, and information is not sufficient. When guests are away from their cars, they are able to think differently. When they're in their car, they're a different person. But if you can get them out of their car, they become the person, the real people are the ones who are outside their car. And lastly, emotional experiences drive the economics. Well, and vice versa. Numbers inform ideas, but ideas also inform numbers. So as we think about, as you think about this going forward, modeling these ideas with numbers, and then having those numbers inform how big, how long, how much a show can be. You can model the show much better if you know the numbers. You can model the numbers much better. You'll be able to know more about the numbers if you know that it's a show. Another project, I've done a lot of work for the Polynesian Cultural Center in Hawaii, and this is the IMAX Theater. I don't know why they allowed them to do this, but it looked like an old gray battleship to me. And they said, can you do something with that? Because, you know, we like the show that plays inside, but the building is not exactly Polynesian. I said, no, it's not. Let us do something. And that's what we did. Maybe some of you have been there. It's very different. The whole front end of Polynesian Cultural Center has changed over the last, since 2006 or 7, I think, is when we began. The takeaway from that, I think, is don't be inconsistent with your story. Saying one thing and building another is confusing for your guests. You can't be the best Western town in the West and have confusing architecture at the same time. Now, I'm not suggesting you become Santa Fe. I know lots of towns that are like Santa Fe. And I'm not asking the architects, I am an architect, I'm not asking the architects to curtail what they're doing in creative ways, but I'm just pointing to some cautionary things that have happened in other places that have lost their message. They've lost their ability to communicate because people understand the guest is getting confused by what they're saying and doing. Another project, this one also was from the Polynesian Cultural Center, and I'm sorry I meant to put in here the what this building looked like beforehand, but Polynesians, for the most part, are big and proud people, and the doors on this building used to be aluminum and about that, you know, this big. Well, some Polynesians are, you know, families can't get through that door without going one by one. So we put in a door that was 12 feet wide and 12 feet tall, and we had to have it specially made. And then we put this as a portico outside that door. And on the inside, we did this. Some of you have been in the building. It's called the Gateway Building. And we built a mural, designed and had painted a mural. It's one of the biggest murals now in the world. At times it's 20 feet tall. You can see over on the right-hand side. Here's a more close-up of it that tells the story of Laie. About the time that we had finished that, they said, wow, we're getting a lot more people now. And it was not a surprise that that would happen. So this is the last thing we did for them and completed in 2016. The entire retail front end has changed. This is a SketchUp model of it. And there I am pretending to smile about having worked on the project. This is what it looks like at nighttime with people coming. There's as many people now that come there. We recommended to them that they not have an entry fee on that side of the project, and they don't. So guess what? Lots of people go there, And they're making, I won't tell you the dollars per square foot, but people here would be very happy with the dollars per square foot. You know, and I've spent all day yesterday walking around, looking at things, talking to people, and I said, I'm kind of tired of walking around here. I wasn't tired of being there, but I was tired, my legs were tired. So I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take Disneyland and I'm going to impose it on the top of this, because I know when I walk around Disney, I'm walking maybe at a minimum 3 to 5 miles, and at a maximum, if I really go to everything, I'm walking about 15 miles. Well, there's Main Street Disneyland on top of your Main Street from, what is that, from the roundabout east over to, what is that street? Yeah. And so is the Old Town comparable? In some ways it is. I'm going to leave you with this thought. Artfulness leads to good experience, and good experience is good business. When experience is the guest's purchase intent, and it is, then artistry is the essential element. Art is not just hung on the walls, it's in and through everything that you do, including the clothes that people wear and the way that they talk to other people who they know are guests. Facilities are only the stage upon which the show takes place. And I'm sorry to my architect friends to say that, because most architects don't believe that, but I do. It's not the facilities for which the people come. That's simply the theater within which the show takes place. So don't make the facilities different than the message. Next, guests want to be moved physically and emotionally. And if you don't move them, you ever been in a place where the kids are just jumping around? Well, that's what happens. If you don't move them, they move themselves, and they get tired very quickly, especially when they're old like me. So try a mixture of storytelling, music, acting, dance, visual tickles, we'll call them, and you do much better. Those of you who are retailers know what I'm talking about. But it's not like icing a cake. It's got to be in and around and through what you're doing. Full immersion experiences promote a suspension of disbelief. And we can talk at length about that, but look it up and I think you'll find some interest there. And amusement parks are not theme parks. Why? Because stories are the most important part of theme parks, and they're a lot of times nowhere to be found in an amusement park. The businesses that you're in and the business of running the community is show business. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Sounds like we should have a much longer conversation about all those great ideas. So thank you for that presentation. Next and last of the presentations, we have Chris Milkey, and he is of Sana Park LLC, and Chris is a longtime resident of Scottsdale, right, Chris?
Yes, I've been a resident in Scottsdale since 1992. I'm also a degreed mechanical engineer, a former rocket scientist, a plasma expert, a laser expert. I'm a licensed contractor in 2 states.
And you're here to talk to us as
I'm here
a
to talk
parking
about
space
parking.
expert.
I'm also a parking expert. I've been in the parking business for 21 years.
All right, take it away, Chris. Thanks.
Here we go. So we all know that parking is an issue here in Scottsdale, and it's been a kind of a mercurial issue. And I want to talk to you about how I feel that we could probably use what's already here and maximize it and make Scottsdale come into the 21st century while keeping the motif of Old Town. Next slide. Okay, so a couple things for the motorist. One of the things that we do with parking guidance, the first touch point that any city has with the motorist is the traffic. Once you get past the traffic, the second touch point is parking. You want to have a good parking experience for your customers, for your citizens, because you don't want them pissed off. Happy people spend money. Happy people talk about their great experience. That's why Walmart has greeters. So one thing that we can do with what is already here with the parking lots that are here, and there's the lots and the garages, is that we can have dynamic sign counts. One of the keys is accurate sign counts. When you go to Sky Harbor Airport and you see those horrible signs, their system is beyond horrid. You go there and it says, oh, there's 132 spaces on this level, and you go in there and there's none. Or you go to the level that says full, and there's about 200 spaces. So we don't do that. We're the inventor of the technology. We easily have the world's largest install base. Every time that we come out with a new technology, all of our competitors are chasing our tail, and they can never get it right because it's always patented. The other couple things that we can do is we can not only say, okay, there are 122 spaces on this floor, we can break it out. There are also 7 handicap spaces. There are also 3 EV spaces. We can also put emergency fire spaces, and so those people can know that there are spaces for them to park in these different garages. We can change the detector colors of any of our detectors to any color on the color wheel. So let's say there's a whole row that you want to change from standard spaces to ADA spaces. You repaint the spaces, make them a bit wider so there's ADA loading. We change it to blue. You're off and going. What this does for the municipality, the parking data can be collected for the garage. Our systems, from the minute a vehicle parks, it tells you how long it parked, the time it parked. We can offload the dynamic information for the entire garage. Hey, these are the peak hours. This is the average stay. This is the peak day. Like we had one of our clients, Rockville Town Square. They used to think that Friday was their busiest day. It turns out that it was Thursday at happy hour because they got 2-hour free parking there, and people would come in, drink for 2 hours, and leave. So the nice thing about this too is all the data is exportable to Excel, so you can make all kinds of neat graphs and do everything that you want to do with it, and then you know whether you need parking. If you need more parking, our system will tell you, and it's not some guy sitting in a beach chair counting cars going in. I think that car's been here 20 minutes. You know exactly how long the vehicle's been there. Also too, for most of the garages, they're 3-hour maximum parking. You pull into a space, the detector turns red. The minute that somebody's there for 3 hours and 1 second, you also get a yellow light. We can have it flash, we can have it alert. It shows up on the screen, on the computer screen and the control screen. Okay, also one other thing is that we have 20 different types of databases already built into our software. And with our software, you pay for it one time, and what it will do is you can use it to tie into pay-on-foot systems. You can use it to maybe summons a trolley. Hey, 20 people just parked in the Civic Center garage, get a trolley over there and drive them around. Next, a couple things that I notice about the garages here in Scottsdale. They're all hidden, which is a good thing because we want to keep the motif of Scottsdale, of Old Town. Parking garages are usually very, very utilitarian. They're not very, the aesthetics of them is not very good. And playing Where's Waldo with parking, though, is not good, because if people who aren't from here come down and they want to go to art galleries and they're like, okay, I can't find any on-street parking, where am I going to go? This slide shows you the signage that's there for the Museum of the West parking. I went to the Museum of the West parking lot this last Saturday night at 8:08 p.m. and there were 6 cars and 125 spaces available. But the problem is if you look at these pictures, nobody can find the garage. There's a similar problem with the parking corral and where the farmer's market is. If you look at the signage and the entrance to that garage, it's terrible. And people don't know. There are, including the ramp, there are 122 spaces below there. The only people that really know that those spaces are there are the people for the farmer's market. Dynamic signage is key. Here's some of the signs that are available right now for the Civic Center garage. The Civic Center garage is the only one-way garage that I've ever seen in 21 years. It's a very strange garage. Where it's located, though, is perfect. But if you enter on the northwest corner, you only have access to 59 of the spaces. Then it spits you out into the alley by Los Olivos. And most people don't know. They think that's a one-way alley, so they don't know to make a left and then re-enter the garage where there are another 250 spaces. So if you had an individual space count technology within the garage, and you had signage there that said, hey, if you make a left here, there's another 134 spaces and 16 handicap spots, you would get people parked out of their vehicles and happy as a clam and ready to spend money and have fun. The only garage that does have a lot of signage is the South Bridge garage, which is under the Barrio Queen, but most people don't even know it's there. But if you look, there are 4 signs, and they're all within 20 feet of one another. I superimposed, and by the way, I am not a graphics design artist, so you'll see some of the stuff and it'll look like somebody's 3rd grader did it, but you get the point where in the middle there, if you had a dynamic sign that said, you know, there's 110 spaces and 6 handicap spaces and 3 EV spaces, people would know that they're not just talking. You see that sign, and a lot of people think that that's just signage for that lot right there that goes right up to the waterfront, let alone if you go around and then underneath that there's a whole bunch of parking. Here are a couple examples that I put in. I think the signage needs to look old. It needs to be rusted. It needs to look rustic. We could even, City of Scottsdale could even do mimic the cowboy that's on Main and Scottsdale Road, and or put cowboy hats on top of the signs or whatever. Anything to kind of make it old, but keep the dynamic signage. And one of the key is anybody can have dynamic signage. You see it at Sky Harbor Airport, but it's got to be accurate. That's one of the key things. I did a couple other 8th grade drawings here just to kind of show you. I mean, maybe up on top they could put a cowboy hat on top of the signs or something, but just think about if one of these signs were at that, right as you get to that stop sign at the roundabout by the Museum of the West over in the art gallery area. It would tell people, hey, if you make a left right here, there's 76 spaces and 3 handicap. I think I counted 6 handicap spaces in that garage. Back one more. Also, too, the little sign on the right, those are called blade signs. And there's a lot of blade signs that we have on garages back east because they don't want something obstructing people walking, so they have them up on their building, and then they have arrows, but they do have the dynamic display in there. This is one of the only wild cards with our systems is we don't make...
Can I have a point of order just real fast?
Yes.
I'm so sorry. And full disclosure, Chris is a neighbor of mine and a wonderful human being, and we see each other weekly. But Mr. City Attorney, can we confirm about procurement issues? Because I see Sauna Park right there. There's a lot of we in our systems. I just want to make sure with any potential RFP or anything like that that we're in the clear here.
Mayor and members of the City Council, Vice Mayor Quasman, you raised some interesting questions. I believe the purchasing director is present and would be the best person to answer those questions.
Hello. So I do think that we would want to do a competitive process, an RFP for a system like this, if that is what the city was interested in doing.
If that's true, Mr. City Attorney, can we I just want to make sure that we're not breaking the charter right now.
So Vice Mayor Quasman and Mayor Borowski and members of the City Council, the issue is that this particular potential vendor is giving a presentation before the City Council, and that I don't know if he's going to bid on any sort of project or not. Perhaps we could ask him, but it potentially does give him a competitive advantage that could taint an RFP process.
This is absolutely no disrespect for the gentleman who I'm standing across from right now, who is again a friend. I see him on a weekly basis. This is not any disrespect, but I don't find this appropriate. With all due respect, I'd like to have a vote on whether we could continue with this presentation. But I, for one, am going to make a motion that we discontinue this conversation right now for procurement purposes and because of the charter.
Can I state one thing, though, that I'm not going to be giving any numbers? I'm just talking about what our technology does.
Second.
So I'm going to chime in because we got a legal opinion. If it's not a violation of any procurement, I don't know. I'd like to hear from a little more expanded based on what the purchasing director, because I think Councilman Quasman, Vice Mayor Quasman, excuse me, has raised a legal issue. So I prefer to have a more expanded, obviously if there's a violation of some ethical rule, I would have assumed that our city attorney, acting city attorney, would point that out, and it wouldn't be necessary to take a vote on such an item. So it's either a violation of the ethics procurement code or it's not. I mean, if you're taking a vote to, terminate the presentation, I want to hear from the city attorney, because obviously if there's a violation of any procurement code or ethics, which, we have presentations from people in business all the time up here that might, in fact, be submitting on some future proposal. We don't even have, for the record, we don't even have an RFP. We haven't given direction for an RFP. We may never have an RFP. So can you expand on this for us? Legal advice, please.
Mayor and members of the City Council, I provide legal advice, and it's up to you, this body, to decide whether to continue with the presentation.
I withdraw my motion and move to go into executive session.
Well, I'd still like the legal advice.
That's fine.
I'd still like the legal advice. Excuse me. We were hearing from the city attorney, and you don't have the floor, Vice Mayor Quasman. So if you wouldn't mind giving us your legal opinion.
I would prefer to give my legal advice in private to maintain attorney-client privilege. I think it would be appropriate to go into executive session to discuss this matter fully.
I'll second the motion.
Was there a
To move into
motion?
executive session. Didn't you just motion it?
Did you motion?
If it was timely, if the motion was timely, then
Sure.
I did motion. Yeah, I moved to go into executive session just for the sake of the legal advice.
And I'll second that motion.
Well, it appears we're going to move into executive session, and we will be back to resume the meeting. Thank you.
Good thing alcohol's allowed in Scottsdale.
Sorry, we're going to take a vote. Pardon me. All those in favor? Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your patience, and we're back on the record, resuming the regular city council meeting. And we have concluded our executive session, and I am, due to the concerns that were raised about potential procurement advantages, we are going to suspend the presentation on the parking. Just for the record, there has been no RFP. It's not agendized for an RFP. So just to alleviate any concerns, we're going to move forward. And that concludes the presentations. Thank you to the presenters that were here today. Really appreciate it, and apologize for the disruption. And yeah, thank you. And then we're going to move on to public comment on item 1, and we're going to go ahead and take all the speakers in the order, starting with the ones that are listed under 1A, and everyone will be entitled to 3 minutes. So I'm just going to go down the list, and you can come over here to the podium, starting with Tom Silverman, and then followed by Hong Bischoff and George Cavalier.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be brief. I've served on the council, and I know when you don't really want to hear too much from me, so I will be brief, I promise. My family was in, just quickly, a little history. My family was in the tourism business for over 60 years in Scottsdale. We moved here from Chicago in 1953. My family built and opened the Paradise Valley Guest Ranch in 1953 with a Wrangler and riding horses, located at 5001 North Scottsdale Road, about a half-mile north of Camelback Road. And by the way, Scottsdale Road, when we moved here, was a little 2-lane road. And also, there was no air conditioning. We moved here, there was just swamp coolers, but you know what? We got along with it. This north side border of the town of Scottsdale was Camelback Road. And we were actually in the county. We weren't even in Scottsdale. And I believe Scottsdale had a population at that time of around 2,500 people. Very small town. We closed the guest ranch in 1977 and built Chaparral Suites, which was an all-suite hotel. During that time, we donated our land on the south side of our property to the city so that Chaparral Road could continue through to Scottsdale Road. Over the years, I've learned how important Old Town is to our local tourism. We cannot afford to lose the cachet and warmth it displays to all that experience it. That's really why I'm here tonight. I'm very concerned about Old Town. I think we need to continue to work with experienced Scottsdale and others that have worked with us over the years to promote Scottsdale. Our general plan 2035, which had much input from the citizens of Scottsdale, should be referred to as much as possible. Just another interesting note, the last fiscal year for the city, the bed tax raised was $34 million to promote Scottsdale, which I think is impressive. But what really worries me again is how the older shopping areas are all being torn down in the valley. And I dread that could happen to Old Town, because it makes us different, you know, than Mesa and Tempe and all the other towns around. It's very special. It has a great feeling to visitors, I know, because I dealt with them, and they loved it. And to this day, you can go to, just recently I was in Old Town, and it's packed. People love it. Fashion Square is beautiful, but so is our Old Town. We need both experiences, so please, whatever we can do to keep Old Town around, it's very important and keeps us so different and so unique in Scottsdale. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for being here, Tom. Sure. Appreciate it. Next, we have Hong Bischoff.
Hi, everybody. And just by surprise, I didn't even know I was in the speech, so just want to get here. And actually, we've been in Old Town for 54 years to this year, and the same locations. So we see the Old Town changes so much, and business changes so much dynamically. And last year, I guess everybody was talking about the so bad year. And sort of everybody was thinking, what are we going to do? Since after pandemic, shopping experiences start changing. So even we're promoting all the fun, all the whatever it is, we need to shift the mind, find a different point, how we can create a new energy and experience, adding on the old one. So basically, that's what I'm thinking all the time, and they try adding something more interesting to this Old Town. And but everybody was telling me, so coming here talking about the parking things, and they just look at this commotions just a few minutes ago, and I was like, okay, I don't know what to say. But anyway, and after I have lots of parking, so I never had problem with the parking, and besides on the March and very busy time. So parking always good for business. So the adding on or not adding on, but how you're adding on, how you make that look good for the Old Town Scottsdale, it's very important. So that's a very big subject that everybody against for farmers market, take the way build a 3-story parking structure there. And visually, I think maybe it's a little destructive because the church being there, the old mission there, and the Cavalier is right across the street. It's very low structured. If you build a very concrete box in the middle of a town, and the surrounding will look just a little shattered. So how we can do this structure, and it's challenging. It's not just put a cowboy hat or change the look, because I'm training as an architect, so I'm very care about how the structure can look. Like you're traveling in the world, in the lots of town, New York, England, whatever. Every time you walk into the very dynamic part, people always keep this green and the park, and let people have amenities, art. So that's what I did for the Old Town. I did lots of flower gardens. Everybody think there's a city garden, but it's okay. But everybody enjoyed. And so I think if you want to do the parking structure there, have to think about not just a straightforward 3 stories, how you can make a little more friendly, and think about the farmers market and do something, shift the box, hire somebody very intelligent, interesting. Like in New York, you did walking on the subways with green walking, and coming out is beautiful. And how we Scottsdale can do, if we just think put a cowboy hat or change anything, there's nothing will happen. Okay, that's what I was
Thank you so much, Hung. Next, we have George Cavalier, who has donated his time to his wife, Liz, so I'll welcome her down, and followed by Brian Robb, who has donated his time to Matt Carter.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, women and men. My name is Elizabeth Cavalier, and my husband, George, was supposed to be behind me, but he stayed behind. We have the Cavalier Blacksmith Shop on the corner of 2nd Street and Brown. It's been there since 1909. His grandfather was actually the 17th citizen of Scottsdale. So we do have a little bit of history here in Scottsdale. And so I'd like to thank Joan for actually bringing up my father-in-law. He was the creator of the Most Western Town brand, also the creator of the Sunshine Parade. He also had Greasewood Flats and Riata Pass. Unfortunately, both of those are closed. And so is the blacksmith shop due to COVID. We would love to be open, but unfortunately, we can't find people to work for us anymore, not at a price that we can afford, being in Old Town. Our concern is the parking garage. on multiple levels. One, it's going to affect our tenant, the Mission. When the parking garage was built the first time, it took double the time that they said it would. It actually closed the restaurant at that time, the Union, the dust, the noise, and the closure of the streets. And that's our concern if we go with this new garage, or whether they're building it up high or redoing it. We're losing Old Town. As people were talking, if you walk around Old Town, the arts and crafts, there's a lot of jewelry stores now, but the blacksmith shop is really the most western part of Old Town. If you really think about it, unfortunately, it's not open. We're trying to do things to get it open, but if this parking garage hinders people from coming in, we're not going to be able to make it. And our concern is the Mission will not be able to make it as well. I used to work with Marilyn Atkinson. I'm sure many of you know her. And her main purpose was to preserve historic Old Town Scottsdale. And that's what we, the Cavaliers, would like to see. Preservation of historic Old Town. Not a big, huge parking garage. There's one behind us that could be for the Civic Center, that could be rebuilt, could be taller, it could suffice for the lack of parking that the city feels that there is. That's all I have to say. So if there's anything, Matt, if you want to come consume the other minutes, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Liz. Appreciate it. Next, we have Matt Carter, followed by Todd Bankoffer.
Hello, how are y'all doing tonight? Good, I hope. My name is Matt Carter. I'm a chef here in Scottsdale. I'm born and raised here in Scottsdale, Arizona. I've lived and worked here my whole life. I really enjoyed the history lesson. It actually reminded me of a silly story that I'll tell real fast. I worked at the Brown Derby back in 1984, and I forged my birth certificate to get the job there. So I totally forgot about that one. That's really where I started my culinary career. I'm the chef at Mission in Old Town, and you know, I'm in the hospitality business. I try to teach that to my staff, right? I'm a chef. I care about my food. I care about cocktails, decor, everything else. But at the end of the day, we're there to take care of customers, right? And I field a lot of complaints, right? We serve a couple thousand people a day. Food's too hot, food's too spicy, you know, it's cold in here, the lighting's too dark, so on and so forth. You know, I hear all the complaints. The one complaint that I never hear is there's not enough parking. I cannot tell you that and I say that with Mission specifically, but I do have another restaurant in North Scottsdale called the Zinc Bistro, and that's in Kierland Commons. That's in Phoenix, by the way. And I hear parking problems there because they do have parking problems. So I'm familiar with the subject, but I do not hear it in Scottsdale. And you know, I do have concerns about the shutting down and the blockage of our business, not only from the finished project, you know, being height and everything else, but kind of ruining the skyline, but also shutting down our business for a period of time. I really like the ideas about technology and being able to make Scottsdale keep it the way that it is, keep that structure and the building designs and everything else. Technology, tourism, the transportation piece, all that makes sense. This is a tourist hub. We live and die by tourism. You know, I've joked for years that if all my clients were just locals, my restaurants would be half the size. You know, we want them to be down here. Tourists aren't parking. Tourists are taking Uber, Waymo, transportation vehicles. I think increasing that and really getting that locked in and loaded would be the proper direction for us to take. I think that's all I've got for tonight. I wanted to say, please, this coming fall, vote for my business partner, Brian Robb, for City Council. Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Wow. All right. Thank you, Matt. Great food there at the Mission. Todd Bankoffer, followed by Steve Sutton, and finally Carmen Allen. Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. My name's Todd Bankafear. I'm the CEO at Western Spirit, Scottsdale's Museum of the West, and it's my pleasure to be here this evening. I'm just going to read my statement. Western Spirit, Scottsdale's Museum of the West is not just a building in Old Town Scottsdale filled with art and artifacts. It is a vibrant gateway to our history, culture, and community identity. Western Spirit plays a crucial role in serving both as an attraction and a hub of engagement. As a Smithsonian affiliate, it represents the 19 western states of the United States, along with southern Canada and northern Mexico, all comprising the North American West. In the last year alone, 50,000 people came through the doors at Western Spirit, and 48% of them visited us from outside of Arizona. They are coming to Scottsdale looking for something authentic, something that can only experience here. The Museum of the West helps give them that cultural anchor point in the middle of our art galleries, our shopping, our dining, and our entertainment. They want to feel something. They want to connect with Scottsdale in a meaningful way. The Museum of the West is one of the few places where visitors come see face-to-face with the stories that actually made this region. Through Western art, culture, voices, and the many perspectives that shaped the modern West. Tourism plays such a crucial role in breathing life into our city, allowing it to thrive and serve as a beacon of inspiration and enjoyment. As we engage with our guests, we also share what makes us unique: the stories, the traditions, and the values that define us in our community. Another key aspect of tourism is the ability to unite us. When we welcome visitors, we open our hearts, our homes, our businesses, offering a glimpse into our way of life. This great exchange creates a strong sense of pride amongst our residents. Having the museum in the West, most western town, has become a wonderful gift for our city and its citizens. And when Joan was up here, I couldn't help but think of Paul Messenger, who told me so many stories about how this museum got started, and the meetings he had in the back of his mortuary on Indian School just to get this museum started. It took visionaries like Paul Messenger, and I just had a moment there. We are very proud of the partnership that we have with the city of Scottsdale and to be able to showcase, I believe, this iconic asset. So as we celebrate our 75th anniversary this year, let's remind ourselves that we need to continue to promote and improve upon this very vital and important characteristics of our city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Todd. Appreciate you coming down. Next, we have Steve Sutton.
Steve Sutton, address on record. Mayor Borowski, before I start, I'd like to point something out. When the agenda was set and posted online, there were 4 separate items on the agenda. And citizens, residents were able to sign up to speak on all 4 items. And that's exactly what I did, is I prepared to speak on item 1, which was presentations, item 1A, item 2, and item 3. And I've done quite a bit of preparation for this, and I'm more than happy to combine what I was going to say on presentations and then on the downtown merchants, which appears to be just, that's a separate agendized item. They're not really in public comment. They were pre-planned. I can't do that in 3 minutes on those 2 items. I need to have more time. I've prepared to do a little less than 3 on the first one and just a little bit more than 2 on the second one.
So Steve, we just, as the chair, I moved the presentations to just public speakers and just decrease their time. So if you could keep it, they're both related matters on Old Town and Downtown, so I'm not sure what the issue is, except for are you asking for a little bit more time?
Yes, I definitely need more time.
Okay, can we do it in 4 minutes? Would that be okay?
I don't think I can do it in 4 minutes. I worked to put a lot of effort into this, specifically on the things that are mentioned, what people are going to be talking to, starting with an amplification of what Joan said.
Well,
I'll start, but
let's see what you can do, Steve. I have all the faith and confidence, and sorry for the confusion. I really appreciate you working with us, and just go ahead and say what you're going to say.
All right. Now, Honorable Mayor Borowski and council members, the Old Adobe mission history was somewhat talked about just briefly by Joan, and I spoke to Joan on Veterans Day about the Old Adobe mission to confirm some of the things I'm going to say right now. And after listening to Mike Lee, it reinforces things I believed for a while. The story of the Old Adobe mission and how it came to be is partially a story of how Scottsdale evolved from a socially discriminate against Hispanics community to acceptance of Hispanics in city leadership over decades. And yet I've seen very little official recognition of the Hispanic contribution to the development of Scottsdale. The Little Red Schoolhouse Historical Museum has a single sentence mentioning the Mexican cotton workers who came here to Scottsdale and who actually built that mission. And there's a couple of pictures and paragraphs on Benny Gonzalez, who designed the building that we are now in. The Old Adobe Mission is more than just an old church. It was the de facto civic center of Scottsdale for decades. That legacy should be respected. Old Adobe Mission is still a church where many people get married because of its beauty and historical significance. Building a garage in front of Old Adobe Mission is disrespectful to what it represents. Since May of 2005, I've spoken to thousands of people in front of the parking corral and other Scottsdale locations. Tourists are almost universally opposed to a garage being built across from the Old Adobe Mission. Many tourists have all but begged me to sign the resident and property owner petition I have opposing the building of garage. Many tourists tell me stories of how their city government has ruined historical areas with inappropriate buildings. We need to preserve, as Mike Lee says, the show and the story. And the story of historic Old Town is it's an old town, and it's low building heights and things that fit in with the motif and mystique that has been built since this became a city in 1951. Videos and slide presentations earlier this year at council meetings to complain that we have less parking spaces than in the past only tell us one thing: we have less parking spaces than in the past. Not many less, but some. That's not evidence that we need more parking space. Only a parking study is sufficient to determine need. Anecdotal evidence for individuals is not sufficient for justifying a $15 to $20 million expenditure of tax dollars for only 183 new parking spaces, and it may not even be that many, because one of the plans is 170. If anecdotal evidence was sufficient, then my observation of the last 3 months of standing in front of the farmer's market and looking over my shoulder at the garage behind Los Olivos would clearly indicate it's underutilized and not enough action is being taken by the city to ensure it is being properly utilized. I've been here since I was a boy in Scottsdale. People complaining about parking in Old Town has gone on since the 60s and 70s, and most of it is due to people complaining about not being able to park directly in front of the business they want to patronize. We need to do a better job showing people where they can park. I've recently noticed some businesses have in their front windows posters with a QR code that shows the public where public restrooms are. Why doesn't the city have better signs showing people where parking is? Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. And you're gonna go ahead and talk about your next comments, is that right, Steve?
Sure. In regards to the task force, which you have not studied yet.
Well, let's wait till we get there.
I prefer to speak after that.
Let's wait till we get there.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much. Okay, finally, Carmen Fallon. Carmen, if you wouldn't mind going over to this one, I should have pointed that out to the other speakers earlier. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Carmen Fallon. I was born and raised here in Scottsdale, Arizona. Mayor, thank you. Council, thank you for giving me the time to speak. I am here to speak about the proposed parking garage that would force relocation of the Old Town Farmers Market. The Old Town Scottsdale Farmers Market is more than just a weekend event. It is a part of the culture, history, and heartbeat of this neighborhood. Keeping it where it is matters because this space represents community, tradition, and connection. In any downtown city, you expect to walk a few blocks. That's the part of the beauty. Downtowns are meant for walking, sightseeing, and discovering the businesses that surround you. This is what makes our market's location so special. It sits at the heart of the historic small businesses, inviting people to explore, connect, and experience the city as it was meant to be experienced. Building a parking garage here is not sensible. It signals the beginning of redevelopment that risks erasing a historic part of our city. Once spaces like this are gone, they cannot truly be replaced. This market brings people together in ways that other places don't. It supports local farmers, artisans, small business owners by providing direct face-to-face connections with customers. It offers families a healthy outing, a place for parents to bring their children and pets, and a welcoming environment for visitors who want to experience Old Town as it has always been. Loved by residents and their families alike, this farmers market is a true community staple, and it deserves to be preserved as is, where it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. Yeah, we are. So we're going to move on to the task force conversation.
Excuse me, but I signed up. I signed up, she signed up.
Okay. Sorry about that. Did I overlook you? My apologies. Patty Badnock. Go ahead. Followed by Yvonne Cahill and Crystal Carroll.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, 40-year resident. To build or not to build the Brown Garage. Several months ago, I visited and kept a list of the shops and made copies of their no to the garage. Update, just finished a second visit and added a few more that I had missed. Here is a copy of what I call HOT, Historic Old Town acronym, shops including names, addresses, emails, phone numbers, and no is still their answer. Steve Sutton collected around over 3,000 signatures from the citizens who professed no as their answer. As I went around to the holiday parties over Christmas, it was an easy sell as well. Would have gotten numerous signatures, but in the spirit of the occasion, I refrained. Conclusion. Like the Axon referendum fiasco, this city council body majority does not represent the merchants or the citizens of Scottsdale, period. Moving the farmers market does not support the historic Old Town either. Further, and finally, bringing them back to an enclosed parking garage to the preferred open-air market garage, which was ideal for selling the produce of fruits and vegetables, does not even remotely represent an ideal improvement. And then I wrote, after listening to Mr. Lee, that you can't have dismiss the Western effect and bring in a confusing architect to really support and honor and represent the historic Old Town, of which we cherish and wish to keep. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty, and sorry about the oversight there. Next, we have Yvonne Cahill, and finally, Crystal Carroll.
Good evening, Council, Mayor Borowski. My name's Yvonne Cahill, address is on record. I'd like to talk about a couple of things tonight, and one of the questions I have is, do we need more parking in Old Town, or do we need more people in Old Town? Is the parking utilized? Well, we know it's not being utilized to its fullest content. I have never had a problem parking in Old Town, and I go there a lot. And I'm very disappointed that the council shut down the most productive presentation we had tonight over a supposed RFP, which is not even being discussed. He didn't even discuss any money. He wasn't discussing hire me. He was just giving a solution. And you guys shut him down. Shame on you. And I want to tell the merchants here, I want to tell every Old Town merchant here, I hope you contact Mr. Chris Milkey after this meeting, get his number, and you can contact him direct. There's nothing the council can do as a resident to stop you from going direct to him to learn about solutions. The other thing is, when I was on staff here, the mayor asked me to ask the staff if she could have a list of downtown merchants so she could start communicating with them. And you know what I got back? I got back, we don't have a list. I'm like, excuse me, you don't have a list of downtown merchants? You run the friggin' licensing department. How could you not have a list of merchants? So was it you didn't have it, or was it you did not want to give it to the mayor? Because I have personally experienced staff members telling me that Greg Caton is telling staff members he's not allowed to work with the mayor or her staff. And that is disgusting. The other thing I wanted to say is we need creative solutions. We need to get into the new era. When the parking garage study was done, it was 2015. Uber was just starting. You guys have no idea. There's no data on how much Uber drops off, of Waymo drops off, of the people. The other thing is you need to find safe areas in Old Town for these rideshare companies to drop people off, because right now it's dangerous. And when they stop to drop somebody off, there's traffic backed up. So I think that's really something you need to work for. I'm really glad that you are forming or trying to form a task force, and I hope you're not undermined on that too. And then as far as the marketing, I was just so disappointed. You have a professional marketing company that goes through the process of their RFP, they come and present, and you shut them down because you want a cheaper solution. Well, I managed a marketing budget of $250,000 a quarter for a Fortune 50 company, and I'll tell you, creativity costs money. And if you don't want to pay for it, you're going to get the same old crap as you had before. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne. Crystal Carroll.
Hi, my name is Crystal Carroll. I actually didn't plan on speaking tonight. I am the owner of a cafe in Old Town at 7077 East 5th, Simply Shroom. We've been open since August 2024. And I think we have a couple of issues here that are major issues. I, of anybody, would want parking. Like if anybody's gonna be for a parking garage, it would be me, because I need customers to come in, get their product and leave, and we don't have parking. But I don't think the solution is just trying to fix it with money. We need to do adequate studies for the existing parking garages. Council, listen up. I'm in Old Town every day. People do not know about the however many garages. There is no signage. Before you go and spend money, what, $20 million for 200 parking spots, which is ludicrous. If you operated a small business like that, you'd go bankrupt, FYI. Okay? We need to start standing up for Scottsdale, guys, and not letting a couple people up here that obviously there's other incentives going on behind the scenes. I am livid sitting here listening to all of this. We need to know exactly if those parking garages are being utilized. And the only way to know if they're being utilized is to do what Chris was talking about. So if you don't want to use Chris, use somebody else. I didn't know about the parking. I'm there every day, and I don't know about all the parking that exists. My employees didn't know. I guarantee a bunch of business owners don't know. We need signage. Disappointed in you. Disappointed that you would stop Chris from speaking. We need education. This was about nothing other than educating us on our parking situation. And shame on you and shame on anybody else over there who doesn't want to educate the public, okay? Thank you. We used to have a trolley that ran through town. The trolley needs to come back. It is about the feeling. We want the trolley back. And I guarantee if you talk to any small business down there, they want it. Let's bring that back. Another issue is, sorry guys, I just did notes. I don't understand where our marketing budget has gone. They say that we spend millions of dollars on marketing. I don't see it as a small business. I feel like we need better marketing for Old Town. Listen, guys, if we don't actually address a solution instead of a Band-Aid, which that's what this $20 million cement block is, if we don't address the problem in Scottsdale, we will no longer be Old Town. We will be Ghost Town, okay? And that's not what I want. So as somebody who loves Scottsdale, I hope that you guys at least listen to what people want and just use common sense. Thanks.
Thank you, Crystal.
Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Crystal.
Madam Mayor.
Before, if you wouldn't mind holding your thoughts there, Adam, and as is always the case, if someone is directly spoken to or about on the council by a speaker, you have the opportunity to make a statement. And I just want to thank Crystal for speaking. And I was the one member that told you about the parking garage across from your business a year after you opened. So I'm glad you know where it is now. Thank you. Go ahead, Vice Mayor Klausman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to reiterate that my concerns with Mr. Milky are not of a political nature. They are not of a disagreement at all about knowledge of parking availability in Scottsdale. I think there's a lot to be done. I actually agree with everything he said up there. There's nothing I disagree with. The difference is that we have very specific rules in the city of Scottsdale, and when it comes to any potential contractual relationship with the city of Scottsdale and any potential vendor, we have to be very careful or else we expose the city to 7-figure lawsuits, right? So it's my job as a fiduciary of the city of Scottsdale to do what I can to protect the city, even when it's with somebody who I care about deeply on a personal level, and I see him every week. I don't know how to explain it any differently without breaching the admonition, Mr. City Attorney, breaching the admonition of the executive session. Can you help with my reasoning without me accidentally breaking admonition?
Did you vote for the parking garage?
I'm sorry. I'm going to interrupt because you had the opportunity to address the speaker, and can we just...
I just want to make sure that I didn't break admonition when doing...
You did not.
Thank you.
So, thank you, Vice Mayor Klausman, and thank you to all the speakers. And, you know, I think it's important to fill in the gaps here. We resumed into executive session because of a point of order that Vice Mayor Klausman made, and it was well taken. I just want to explain to the public and all of you for being here. First of all, thank you for being here. So this was a special meeting I called, so I should know that as such, I might be under a much higher level of scrutiny with some of my colleagues here. But we do go through the process in scheduling this meeting. We were very thorough. Our city attorney, we worked with our city manager, we worked with our city clerk. They knew who the speakers were. They knew that Mr. Milky was exactly what he was going to speak on. They knew that he had spoken to us here before. He's actually talked about this exact same content previously before this council. So to, have this big uproar now is disappointing because everyone knew what we were talking about tonight. The agenda was published and was disseminated. But out of all, an abundance of caution, I am, well received, the comment from Vice Mayor, and given the confusion, I just want to apologize to Mr. Milky for putting you in that position. And, we'll have, I'm sure, plenty of dialogue after this meeting about all of that. And also apologize to my colleagues who appear to be caught off guard by that, even though, again, Mr. Milky has been here before and spoke to us. And parking solutions are on the agenda as number 3 to discuss agendizing that in the future. We'll see how that goes. In any event, I just wanted to fill in the blanks here for the public so that you're not left wondering what the heck is going on. So moving right along to, there's some speakers, I'm sorry. City Clerk would like to say something.
Mayor, Rosemary Priesel would like to speak on this item, on item 1A rather than item 3.
Okay. Okay, why don't we have her speak as the last speaker? Sorry, Ben, I must have missed you communicating that earlier. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no, don't be. Welcome.
I wasn't sure what category I should be in. So I have a totally different subject that has to do with the parking garage. We talk about the pride of Scottsdale, and my landlord, who is here tonight, has spent a lot of money on the Kiva Center, and I have been on Fifth Avenue for 30 years. I own the business on Fifth Avenue, and the parking garage on 3rd Avenue, which was not even mentioned tonight, so maybe there isn't enough signage for that. I was here when it was built, and it's a very busy garage, and my concern is that it is very dirty. The elevators do not work. They have not worked for 2 years. I have had clients that have knee problems. I have had pregnant women who cannot do the stairs, and I am just asking for them to be cleaned and the elevators to be working order, and maybe a paint job. The stairs are dirty, there's gum, there's throw up, it's just disgusting. The trash bins are right outside of 3rd Avenue, and they do get cleaned. They get dumped every day, but it's awful around there. It's unacceptable. Here we are, Old Town people come from all over the country to come visit Old Town, and from 3rd Avenue to Chop Shop is a main thoroughfare. It is not a back alley, it is a main walk area, and it is very disgusting. So I'm just asking for it to be cleaned and beautified. The lighting also in the garage is not working, so that's kind of dangerous. And they did a great job before COVID on monitoring the 3-hour parking, and that helped a lot. And I just would like to see with what we have coming up with the ballpark and Phoenix Open and all the tourism that we have coming, the 3-hour parking is very beneficial. If you could instill that again, that would help a lot, because otherwise we end up having employees park there and not the tourists and not our clients. So that's all I'm asking for. Thank you very much.
That's great. Thank you very much, Rosemary. Thank you for bringing all of that to our attention and reminding us about those items. Councilwoman Whitehead.
Thank you, Mayor. I do want to thank the mayor for having this meeting and all of you for being here and speaking. And I want a special thanks to Joan for the history. And actually what I want to do is fill in some more modern history, because I'm serving on my 8th year. It's gone fast on the city council, and I spent the first 6 especially working on all the issues that most of you brought up tonight, and that's the preservation of Old Town. So I do want to fill in where we are and what's already done, because as we move forward, we want to build on what's already been done and move forward, not start over. So in 2019, For the first time in 19 years, we put bonds out to the voters, and they passed, and that's where we have the Civic Center Plaza that's been redone and is incredible. I cannot believe the number of people that use Civic Center Plaza today as opposed to prior to that project being finished. And I really had questions about whether we needed to do that, but I was wrong, and the city experts were right, and great job. Then in 2020, I spent an enormous amount of time with my colleagues working on a General Plan 2035, thousands of hours of council, staff, resident input, and that was overwhelmingly approved by and ratified by our voters. So what does that tell you? That tells you that the council was aligned with the community, and that's how we got it passed. And that should not be taken for granted. It was the first time in 20 years. It was 10 years late, but we got the job done. In that plan, we reference pretty much all the things you guys mentioned tonight. We reference Old Town specifically. I think I wrote some of the, in the vision statement, we say Scottsdale will respect and be sensitive to our history and legacy found in the heart of Old Town. And again, we reference the need to protect Old Town. So that is a guiding document, but while we were working on finalizing the general plan and sending it to the voters, we were also working on more the action document. And that's the Old Town the Old Town Character Area Plan. And this is really important, and this is the part that we don't want to redo with the task force. We want to build on. And I just want to say that what has made Scottsdale a world-class city is councils they use what was done in the past to move forward. And sometimes when the past councils make a mistake, we're not there to berate them, we're there to make some corrections. So the Old Town Character Area Plan is a great example. In 2018, a version was passed that said, boldly looking to its metropolitan future. Oops. So, and that came with an awful lot of 150-foot buildings. And really what we found in 2022, and with a lot of community input and with our own opinions personally, myself and most of us on council, was that wasn't the vision we wanted for Old Town. So the 2022, make sure I got the years right, I think we passed it in February 23. We passed a new revised Old Town plan that substantially reduced heights. So the heights that you see getting built today, those were projects that were approved prior to the new plan. You will not see more 150-foot buildings being built. What else did we do? We made a requirement for public open space. Some of the people mentioned, we want people walking. You expect to walk in Old Town. You expect to walk in a downtown. So we required pedestrian access. We required public open space. We required more robust landscaping. We also we required quality development, development standards that preserved our Western heritage. So that the way government works is we do a whole lot of things for you, but you don't see the results for a few years. So I just want to make sure that everybody is up to date with what councils have done to get us moving forward into this, the direction that you all want, which is preserving the character that makes us a world-class destination, but taking advantage of technologies or ways of doing things more efficiently and better to save money and make our experience here in Scottsdale better. So on the parking, I also want to mention that since 2021, so we've had a lot of successes on my on my watch that I'm really proud of. But one of the failures is the parking study. Since 2021, I have been pushing for a parking study which was denied. And if it was approved in 2021, it wouldn't have cost that much money and we wouldn't be here debating today. This isn't about do we need parking or do we not, because I don't know. It's about the financial responsibility we have to using the dollars you guys provide through taxes responsibly. And we have to do that with accurate data. So I absolutely support the need for a parking study. I have all along. I also want to talk about that marketing contract. For 10 years, we have had an outside marketing company, a very good one, that has helped make our downtown more vibrant. I mean, I've been here for 30 years. I remember bringing people downtown and there was nobody around. Boy, you can't, that's not true anymore. It just makes me proud. I'm at the waterfront, sometimes at 6:30 in the morning. On Saturdays, it's vibrant, runners everywhere. Every time of the day, the concerts that Gerd has been bringing in, I mean, we are a vibrant downtown, and we didn't do that alone, and we should not reverse that which is working. So next week, I'm going to be asking my colleagues to go ahead and bring back the agenda item to consider a local 21-year business that went through our RFP process only to be denied a contract for reasons that didn't even match what we were supposed to be voting on. So a little plug for that. And I do want to also talk about the farmers market. And I want to thank the mayor and Councilwoman Mary Ann McGowan, because the three of us really were proactive on that. Parking garage, no parking garage, that's not really relevant here. That farmers market has moved several times, and we wanted to solve a couple problems. And I'm really excited about the new location, which is also in Old Town, just right here by City Hall. We solved a couple problems. One is the farmers market was landlocked, and now it has room to grow, and they've been turning down vendors, and that's not a good thing. We want it to grow. And to be honest, it's not the greatest location if you buy some of the delicious pastries and coffee for sitting around because it's an asphalt parking lot. We have grass, we have benches, it's beautiful. Kids can run around and play while their parents are shopping. Right now, the vendors have to put those pop-up tents, right, and generators. That's going to go away, because what we're doing is we're providing shade through our solar parking lot covers and electricity, so no more generators. And there'll be ample parking for we're being very efficient with our parking. We have ample parking for the vendors underground. That's where staff parks. But guess what? Staff doesn't work on Saturday mornings. And our city staff have agreed to move all the city trucks underground Fridays so that there's no problems with parking for the people who want to now come and shop. And I'm told a club is also going to have a bike valet, so that people, we'll see if this happens. It's kind of cool. You see it in other places where people can bike to the farmers market, leave their bike safely, and then shop. And the city can coordinate functions with the Saturday morning farmers market. So I'm actually very enthusiastic about that, and I consider it a separate subject. But I can tell you the value of this community from the get-go, and Joan mentioned this in her talk, is the fact that people choose Scottsdale, and by God, they get involved. And it's your voices that have always made Scottsdale better. And we are certainly the best city I've ever lived in the country. We're going to keep it that way. So thank you for being here, and thank you for the time.
Thank you very much. Councilwoman McGowan, you're up.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilwoman Whitehead. I agree with many of the things you said. It's really important, especially since if you're a Scottsdale resident, I've been a Scottsdale resident for 61 years, my entire life minus 6 months, to know the history. And I always joke with Joan, and I say when I grow up, I want to be Joan Fadala, because I know how much she loves Scottsdale, and I know how much those of you who have reached out to us love Scottsdale. And everybody has many different points of why they love Scottsdale. But one of the things that also Vice Mayor Quasman said is that up here we're creating ordinances, we're following rules. There are things that we have to live by on council. One of them is the general plan, which overwhelmingly passed by the citizens of Scottsdale. This is our directive. In it, all these points talk about Old Town. Every single one of these talks about Old Town. We have a direction from the citizens on what you want for Old Town. We need to follow it. We voted on it. I've been reviewing it based on things that people said. Even Tom Silverman, who got up and spoke, who's a former city councilman, lifelong resident, his family, the business, all that. And he said, use your general plan. It's not yours, it's our general plan, it's the city's. And I just want to remind everyone that this is a guiding document that tells us what the citizens voted for and what they want. Yes, it can change, and that's the other half of our leadership, to listen to what you say. A lot of information goes out because people become passionate, and information is not always accurate. And we need to make sure that we're making decisions based on the best and most recent accurate figures, facts. I would support a parking study. I didn't in the past. I do believe we need the parking structure on Brown. I will say that. We've already invested. It will go up much faster because of how much we've invested in it. The farmers market is going to move. They've signed the contract. They're happy to move. They're going to be able to grow, and we're helping them grow. So there's a lot of things changing in Old Town, but what's not changing is the interest by all of you, by us, to make sure that we're doing right by our businesses and that we're getting those tourists, and we need to invest in them. I was very disappointed that we did not have the contract by the James Agency. We have a brand new economic development director. He's out there, I'm waving to him. We haven't even met formally, I just recognize his face from his picture. And so we have someone who's going to help captain, captain this ship and work towards what you're asking. So I am encouraged. I would support a parking study, and I am very interested in us following the general plan. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Councilwoman McCallum. And I don't see any other speakers. And before we move on, I just thank you, Councilwoman Whitehead, for the kind words. But for the record, I do not want the farmers market to relocate. I want them to stay right where they are. And I know you've all heard me say that before, but I just didn't want there to be any confusion. But having said that, I did support, if they had to move, to relocate them to a reasonable alternative. So just for clarity. All right, moving right along. I think that's everything. Did I miss anybody that wanted to say anything? No? All right. Next, we have the downtown, item number 2, the creation of a downtown task force. We've touched on that. I think there's overwhelming input and support to contribute to ideas in Old Town and downtown, and it would be great to harness that in the format of a task force. And I think a great plan for that would be to have each council member appoint 2 individuals from that do business or are stakeholders in Old Town, downtown area, and then have a chair as well, so 15 members in total. And so I'm going to read the agenda item as stated. This item asks the majority of Scottsdale City Council to adopt resolution number 13583, forming a downtown task force to provide recommendations on improving the downtown character area plan and the downtown marketing effort, directing the city manager to provide support for that task force and providing for the dissolution as well of the task force upon completion of the goals. And I'm going to motion to approve that, but before we do, we have some public comments. Before I do that, I should say, we have public comments on this item. So starting with Steve Sutton, then I have Dan Isaac and Tommy Plato.
Mayor Borowski, when I spoke to you last, I mentioned how I had two things I was going to combine. I actually realized maybe it would be better to combine that second item with this task force item. And I will go through it as fast as I possibly can. In regards to the task force, the persons appointed to this task force should be carefully vetted to ensure that the task force is not dominated by people who have a long history of supporting building a garage at the parking corral. The majority of the task force members should be current owners operating brick and mortar businesses, and a minority of owners of property that is leased to businesses from all Old Town quadrants. Former business owners in Old Town no longer have any skin in the game and should not be on this task force. If this task force is obviously primarily staffed with known donors to the political campaigns of council members, the public will know the fix is in. Now, since October, I've circulated a petition which now has gone before 3,220 residents. 99% of the residents I speak to do not want you to build this garage. I also have a petition I started last week among business owners, and just business owners down in Old Town. I keep hearing people say that, oh, the business owners want this garage. Well, yeah, some of them do. In fact, I met one tonight who's very vehemently vocal about that. But yet, my petition shows that of the 33 I've talked to, 28 absolutely do not want this garage built. They want the farmer's market to stay there. They benefit financially from having the farmer's market there. Using a bigger hammer instead of a skillful use of an appropriate hammer often results in damage to whatever is around it being hammered. Building a new, bigger garage instead of careful analysis of what parking management tools are best to use is not going to solve the problems of business owners in Old Town. Building a new, bigger garage will damage the ambience and character of historic Old Town, and that attracts customers to businesses. No matter what the garage contractor promises in the form of mitigation, the months of construction will financially harm businesses. The moving of the farmer's market to the City Hall parking lot will financially harm many brick and mortar businesses. That price is too high to justify building a $15 to $20 million, at most 183 parking space garage in front of Scottsdale's most historic building. And in regards to the farmer's market, what Councilwoman Solange Whitehead just said is unequivocally not true. I have spoken to the managers of the farmer's market since May. They absolutely do not want to go here. The only reason why they signed a contract is you all but took them in a back room and beat them with rubber hoses. That lot is logistically terrible for them. It is 1,500 feet away from the customers they share with Old Town. People are not going to be seeing that. People who come to visit Scottsdale stumble upon the farmer's market on Saturdays. I speak to these managers and owners of the farmer's market every Saturday. They do not want to go to this location. Your shade structure you're bragging about is going to cause a problem in that you're covering half of the parking lot, and nobody who cooks in the farmer's market is going to be allowed to be under it. You have 2 vehicle entrances instead of 4 where they're at now. That is an ideal location that you can approach set up from multiple directions. You've created a narrow L-shaped trap for them, and they don't want to go there. And if anybody says otherwise, they're obviously not really talking to the owners, and I'm going to assure you, residents are going to remember anybody who moves this farmer's market and builds this garage. They are absolutely going to remember this. This is a very simple to understand issue, and this will be in the minds of voters, I guarantee it, right up to November.
Thank you. Steve, were you going to? Thank you. Did you have another comment that you wanted to switch to, or is that the?
Yeah, what was item number 3? I can go ahead and talk about that right now.
Can you do
the item you need to
just a minute?
Yeah,
is that okay?
Just 1 minute.
Okay.
The item you need to agendize immediately is what you should have done in February of 2020 after the 2019 bond issue. The bond issue which nobody voted to build a garage. Question 2 was not specifying building a garage. That was an option. It also included modifying both parking structures and other infrastructure. There is no specification that a garage has to be built by the 2019 bond issue. It's been said many times here from the dais that that's true. Now, that stopped over the last few months because I think we finally convinced certain people here that we're a little bit smarter than that. You need to agendize what should have been agendized 6 years ago. You need to do a parking study and figure out what's really going on down there before you spend $15 to $20 million on a ridiculously small amount of parking spaces for a garage that I look at every Saturday and has only had even maybe 90% occupancy on 2 Saturdays since October. We're going to hold you accountable. You need to wake up and really realize what your residents, I don't care what your general plan says. Today is today, and we're going to hold you accountable.
Thank you, Steve. All right. Dan Isaac.
Dan Isaac, address on record. I'm here to speak in support of the concept of the Downtown Task Force. If any of you visited Palm Springs 25 years ago, you saw what happened when business owners and residents weren't listened to, and you saw Palm Springs become a row of empty storefronts, and you were lucky to buy either a t-shirt or a refrigerator magnet. The city rightfully got out of the way, allowed businesses to thrive. So I'm hoping that some of the recommendations of this task force do that. I do not know about running a single proprietor commercial enterprise, but I do know a lot about task forces and committees. So I do have some concerns about the proposed structure. 15 is neither nimble nor efficient. And I think the council should actually rethink the size and separate the task force to be a steering committee of 7 people or 8, and then have an input, an advisory group, whether it be through focus groups or solicitation of surveys that would allow a much broader input from residents and business owners. I think that would serve the city much better than an unwieldy 15-person task force. Secondly, I have concerns about the requirements of who is on this. I think you are unnecessarily precluding people with significant experience, expertise, and success in revitalizing a commercial district because they might not currently own a business or haven't owned a business specifically in Scottsdale. There are a whole lot of people that can provide significant expertise in this area. And then lastly, to Vice Mayor Quasman's concern about violating rules of order, ethics, and so forth, I hope he has the same zeal in precluding people from participating on an advisory task force that would have a potential conflict of interest or self-dealing because they own a business that would directly be impacted by the recommendations to the council. Those are my thoughts. I do want to address something that Council Member Whitehead said, because I think she was inaccurate and a bit revisionist in her portrayal of the farmers market. The farmers market did not come to City Council and say, we want to move. They were forced to move. And I am glad that there is a landing spot for them, but to recast it as something that they wanted is false. And if we weren't building an unnecessary parking garage, they would not have been forced to move. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate that. Tommy Plato, you're next. Thank you, and last.
Is there any way to get that to show whatever I put under it? Thank you. My name's Tommy Plato. Thank you guys for having me. Thank you, council. Thank you to everybody that spoke tonight. I live in Old Town. I own a restaurant in Old Town, and I own property in Old Town. And I'm in support of creating a task force to have a voice between the citizens and the council member. I think it's a great idea. I'd put my name in the hat to be a part of that just because this is my home and it's a neighborhood. And I think people kind of forget that. We have a neighborhood. Obviously, everybody in this room cares about Scottsdale. I care about it. And I think we need to be smart about how we go, or we're going to lose our identity. We don't need to be, 1940s West, but we need to carry that in our spirit. And I think we need to be conscious about how we develop. I'm pro-growth, but I'm anti getting too dense and becoming a homogenized downtown like every other city. When you go to New York, when you go to Miami, when you go to Austin, they all look the same and you get anxiety. I think Scottsdale has a relaxing vibe. I think you can ride your bike from the Greenbelt all the way up to McDowell Mountain Ranch. You can go from the canal all the way down to downtown Tempe. That is like a spirit that I think people will forget. The parking structure, I agree, is going to be a contentious issue, but you got to not miss the bigger picture. My restaurant is in the heart of what I consider the heart, and I'll put it up on the screen here, and it touches every artery of what downtown is. And we made this map, the business owners in this area, because where I'm at is 6 acres slated for development by David Sellers of LGE. And I know David, and there's people that come into my restaurant, all these people. I'm pro doing smart things, but also you're gonna gut the spirit of the arts district too at the same time. And people don't understand, you get caught up on a parking garage when 6 acres is gonna get torn down. And you know, I'm affected by it, but I'll adapt just like everybody else. We have to adapt sometimes, and that's okay. But I think change is inevitable. But you got to be smart how you do it. You got to be creative. You got to be artistic. You got to get the community involved. There's leather artists in town, the blacksmiths, Mark Majori lives in town. He's like the best Western artist in the world, and he's a Scottsdale resident. And so bringing the community together. The farmers market is great. I love the farmers market. It was more political than this government is. I swear to God, getting in there is hard. I think it should be in a larger space. I'm glad they found something. I'm not aware of everything that's gone on in the past year, but have you guys been to San Luis Obispo? On a Thursday night, there's 30,000 people that show up, and it's down Main Street. It's such a cooler vibe than any farmer's market in the world. And we have the Main Street to do it, which has kind of been a ghost town in the last 10 years, in my opinion. So there are ways to be creative and think outside the box and not get hung up. We all get emotional. We love this city. But I think having people that are a part of it on the task force will be a good thing, and maybe we can communicate with you guys and meet in the middle somewhere. And thank you guys.
Thank you, Tommy. And Tommy, you forgot to say the name of your restaurant. It's amazing. It's The Ends. I know, but
I'm not here to promote, but
we
it's
mentioned
the
the
Ends,
mission,
which stands for The Energy Never Dies, and it's all about community, and it's about connection. And I think if you build something for locals, the tourists will come. My restaurant is not for people that are tourists or the bikers on the things and the drunks out there. My restaurant is for the people that live here, and I want to meet you and know you, and this is a neighborhood at the end of the day. I know everybody that lives in the waterfront. I'm down here every day riding my bikes. It's an amazing place to live, and we can do the wrong thing and turn it into every other city, or we can be smart about it, and I think that we need to think about these things.
Thank you, Tommy, for being here. Appreciate it. All right, that concludes the speakers on item number 2, and I'm going to make a motion to approve the resolution number 13583. But before I do, go ahead. That's my motion, actually. Go ahead.
I was going to, I'm not going to second it because I want to amend it, so I'll hold off.
No, go ahead. I don't hear a second. Anyone have a second? I'm not
Okay, I would
feeling
like to
optimistic here.
amend the motion to make it half the size. I agree with Mr. Ishik. We don't do, or Isaac, we don't do that often. But to make it smaller is, and one of the things I would like is people on it, I was contacted by a woman today who lives in Old Town. She's like, I invested in living in Old Town because I love Old Town. We should be included if we live in Old Town. So I think the possibility of having a member appointed that actually lives in Old Town is very important. So I would amend the motion to say to accept it, but with half the size, not 15, make it 7, one appointment from each person.
I'm happy to amend it because I think that's a fair point, and I didn't hear a second for mine. So I'm happy to amend the motion to have each council member make an appointment based on their own, judgment of who would be the best fit for the task force as a starting point. So that's my motion. Do you want to second that, Councilwoman McCallum?
Second.
Okay. Sorry, do I need to finesse that a little bit better?
Mayor and members of the council, I just want to confirm, is the motion that's on the table, one that not only reduces the size, but there's 15, so that would be 7.5. So are we reducing it to 7? And are we expanding the qualifications to be former business owners or current business owners and residents?
I would like to add residents. So they're not precluded from being a member of the task force. They don't have to be a business owner. I mean, they can live in Old Town, they could be. So I think that's very important.
Okay, just clarifying what the vote is for.
Yes, I'm happy to make that revision to the motion as well. Councilwoman Whitehead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I want to speak to this task force, and part of the reason I gave the history is the way the task force is described now undoes voter-approved the general plan and community input on the character area plan. So again, my caution is I'm not going to support something that undoes thousands of hours and resident voices that got us to where we are today, but I see plenty of work that needs to be done. Some of it, I think, does need a task force. Some of it does not. I think we need a parking study. I think we need a marketing contract. That doesn't require a task force. So what I am looking for is more time to define, like, do we want a task force that discusses maintenance? Because again, the city has been good at building things, but I agree with whoever spoke about the situation in our current parking garages. And I am constantly dealing with complaints from merchants when trees die and are not replaced. So I'm interested in a task force to talk about the nuts and bolts of keeping up our city, but not just opening up literally 4 years of work and voter-approved documents. So I don't think we can make those changes to a task force today on the dais, but I think it's important that we find a path to do that. We have increased, we have these monthly breakfasts. We are looking for ways to get more input and listen to your voices. But again, I think the way this task force is described today is too broad, it's too much work on the staff, and it undoes all the residents that did the work over the last 4 years. So we need to find a way to narrow that down. I like the 7-member idea, and I would support something in the future, but I'm not going to support this right now the way it's stated. But I'm glad we're having this discussion. This is important, so thank you.
Councilwoman DeVasquez.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to elaborate a little bit on what Councilwoman Whitehead said. Over the course of the last year, we have had a lot of conversations about Old Town, and it's a focus, I think, for all of us. We realize that Old Town is a gem. Old Town is special. Old Town's unique charm is what brings so many people here. When the first picture you see of Scottsdale is typically a picture of Old Town. And that's what people think of. They don't necessarily think that Scottsdale goes all the way up to Cave Creek, that we're 31 miles long. A lot of people think of Scottsdale as Old Town. So many of us have been working on this over the course of the last year. So I thought I would highlight some of the things that we have done. And then also, Councilwoman Whitehead started to address some of the things that we're looking to do to listen to residents as well. So over the course of the last year, the city manager dedicated $40 million to capital projects, not only parking garages, $7 million to roads and alleys in Old Town, streetscape beautification, $2 million. There is design work on 2nd Street, there's sewer improvements, we've got monument signs going in on 5th Avenue, and we're doing a Main Street streetscape. So really working on beautification of Old Town and taking that very, very seriously. There's also utility box art installation that we're working through, as well as the Old Town marketing that has been mentioned. That's something that, when I talked to my friends up in North Scottsdale, and I said to my girlfriend that I was going to Canal Convergence, she said, "What's Canal Convergence?" So clearly we haven't done the job to reach even our own residents about all the amazing things that we have in Scottsdale. So that's a big focus for us, is this Old Town marketing. We put $125,000 into the Gallery Association. They asked for 125. The Tourism Commission said 75, and council overrode them, and we said, no, we're going to do 125,000 because we really want to make sure that we're giving our partners the opportunity to invest in their marketing plans. And then something that hasn't been talked about tonight, but I think is really key, is our city manager identified the need for someone to be going down and talking to the merchants, someone who's really boots on the ground. So this example of the parking garage that needs to be cleaned, the trash that needs to be picked up, who are the merchants, what are your needs, how can we help you on a day-to-day basis, that individual is actually starting on January 26th. So we are going to have someone whose full-time job is to walk around and talk with all of the merchants in Old Town. So I hope that they will, I don't know what the plan is, but send out a letter to everyone, introduce themselves, and then one by one, I think you should all expect to see the individual out walking around Old Town and meeting with you. We are working on a noise ordinance because that's an issue that has come up in some of the areas. We have a lot of noise and that affects the residents. So that you'll be seeing in February. We have a contract with Scottsdale Arts that is being worked on, but also part of that is we're planning on investing in the building itself. So you're going to be seeing some upgrades to the theaters, stage 2 remodel, the camera security system, the handrails, the SMOCA is going to have updated lighting, so you're going to see some really nice things over the course of this next year for Scottsdale Arts. Councilman Graham asked for a review of the Old Town Tourism Plan that will be happening in February, so that's already on the calendar. We're also working on the strategic plan for tourism in 2026, as well as the economic development plan. One of the things that our city manager realized is that tourism and economic development in Scottsdale go hand in hand. We bring in 11 million people every single year to the city of Scottsdale with a $3 billion economic impact. So now we have a new executive director of tourism and economic development who will be looking at those things together, thinking not only how can we bring tourists in, but how does that affect our city, and maybe what do we need to be doing in the economic development realm that can help with tourism. Tourism pays for 25% of our taxes in this city. It's a wonderful benefit to our residents. And so we're thinking about tourism in a whole new way, which is really exciting. So I wanted to highlight those things. And I also wanted to thank Councilwoman Whitehead for mentioning the work that has been done over the course of the years. As recently as 2024, there were changes made to the character area plan. So we have been doing a lot of work. We have a lot of work that's in process, but also we now have someone who's going to be reaching out to you specifically. So I think it's important to continue communicating, but also to give this work an opportunity to succeed, and then see what else needs to be done so that we can have, so we can all be successful. But I want you to know that we genuinely care. We're genuinely working on improving Old Town in a way that honors our historic heritage, but also really helps the merchants and brings high quality visitors to our area, but also in a way that our residents are going to be really proud of. We want to bring North Scottsdale residents, Paradise Valley residents, into Old Town, to Tommy Plato's restaurant. We want everyone to enjoy Old Town and our Western heritage. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Littlefield.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to say I do not believe that another task force creation is necessary right now. I think that would be counteractive to helping the downtown area. For all the reasons that Councilwoman DeBoscus mentioned, we're doing so much right now. Another task force is just another layer of bureaucracy. We already have multiple staff members, including the city manager, working with our council-appointed Tourism Development Commission, and they are developing the Tourism Development Strategic Plan, which includes all of the downtown, and will coordinate with the businesses and the surrounding areas in an updated, cohesive plan to cover the requirements that we have in our downtown. I'd like to give that a chance. I think it sounds really good, and I think we should be very active in doing it, and making sure that that continues, and have council get reports back on what's happening, how is it going, how's it progressing, and what can we do to make it work. So I would like to give that a chance first before we put some sort of, legal mandate and all that kind of stuff on it. And to me, that just adds another layer of bureaucracy and slows things down. So I am in agreement with Councilwoman DeBacus on this. I think we need to give that a chance first and see how it works. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Littlefield. I don't see any further questions, and we'll take a vote on the motion. But before I do, I've heard a lot of talk about, referring to having stakeholders involved and being part of a task force so that we can hear directly from them with input as another level of bureaucracy surprises me, honestly, and I certainly couldn't feel more different than that about it. I think that really there's an overwhelming sentiment that we're not hearing the residents and we're not taking action quick enough on it. And while thank you. And while it's in the works, hearing from Councilwoman DeBacus that there's a noise ordinance being drafted is, interesting news. I guess that's just coming staff-driven or whatever the case might be. But I personally think that the more residents involved in the process, the better. And I think that that won't be a nuisance or a drain on our staff resources. In fact, to the contrary, we can just, cut to the chase and get together and make some major improvements. So with that, I've heard a lot of, I don't think we're going to get the vote on it, information. But with that, let's take a vote on the motion that's on the table. Thank you. And that motion does not pass. So moving right along, we have. Let's move right along. Thank you very much. The last item on the agenda is future action on parking solutions. This item asks the majority of the city's council to direct the city manager to agendize an item for a future council meeting related to action on downtown parking solutions. And I know I heard a few comments from my colleagues here that a parking study would be a good idea. I think whatever the scope is, since it hasn't been done since 2015, I think that we do need some updated information. So I'm going to make a motion to agendize for a future meeting, have the city manager agendize that for a future city meeting.
I'll second that motion.
Yes. As the agenda item says, to direct the city manager to agendize at a future city council meeting, downtown parking solutions discussion. What's a yes or no?
Yes, I second to agendize it at a future meeting, parking solutions, including a study.
Well, for him to bring forward ideas on how we might address the parking issues that seem to be plaguing the downtown area. And parking study is, we can refine it a little bit more to update a parking study if that would make everyone comfortable. I'm happy to do that. Maybe agendize or ask the city manager to agendize an item involving a parking study for consideration at a future council meeting. Is that?
I definitely second that.
Add more clarity? We're going to have public comment, yes. Sorry. It's already a long night. Okay, why don't we pause and have public comment, okay? Is that all right? Oh, city attorney, you want to talk first?
Mayor, I was going to point out that we needed public comment
Yeah,
because it was so
thank you.
agendized.
That's what we have Dan Isaac for, so thank you very much for keeping me on task there, Dan. Okay, Steve Sutton, followed by Dan Isaac.
Mayor Boraski, I said what I wanted to say about this at my last time I
Thank you very
spoke.
much. Appreciate your input. Dan Isaac, followed by Patty Badenoch, Yvonne Cahill, Rosemary Preisel, and French Thompson, and then Tom Frankel.
Dan Isaac, address still on record. I don't understand how any elected official can claim to be using taxpayer money appropriately or with any fiscal responsibility if they make decisions on spending enormous amounts of money without data to support the need. The bond study did not require a new structure. For example, the money could be used to fix the Third Avenue issues that were raised at this meeting. It can be used to improve signage, but the most important thing that this council needs to do, regardless of political affiliation, is be good stewards of our money. That requires data that you do not have. And so to proceed with any expenditure without data is mismanagement and inappropriate. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Patty Badenoch. Thank you. Yvonne Cahill.
Dan's taller than me. Yvonne Cahill, address on record. Talking about the Old Town parking garage on Brown. Again, I've never had a problem parking in Old Town, ever, and I go down there a lot. And I totally agree with Mr. Isaac that there needs to be a study done on the current utilization of the parking. You guys want to spend $20 million of our money, and you don't even know what the utilization is of the current parking situation. It's ridiculous. And also, we all know that there's an RFP process. We all know that it'll be put out to bid. We all know that everybody will have an opportunity to present, and to shut down a speaker who is providing a solution just to educate us, who doesn't even talk about anything about costs or asking to participate, is ridiculous. And I really am disappointed in the city attorney. And I think he just listens to the block, and whatever they want, he answers in that direction. So for $20 million, you could have an app at the city, and all the tourists and all the residents of Scottsdale could have free Uber rides down to Old Town for like friggin' ever. You know, you guys are gonna you guys are gonna waste $20 million, and you don't even know what the current situation is? I mean, I can't believe it. I mean, start thinking out of the box, because $20 million is just gonna buy you a cement box, which can't even ever be repurposed for anything else but a cement box. And it's gonna ruin that area from its historic look. So I just want to hopefully have council think outside the box on that. And if you provided all the citizens and tourists with Uber passes that they could get off the app, they could go shopping for art, they could go eat in the restaurants, they could drink as much as they want, they could stay down there as long as they wanted, and it wouldn't be an issue for anybody. So please try to think about out-of-the-box thinking, and don't spend $20 million of our money on a cement box that's going to be outdated and not utilized because you're way behind the times. Thank you.
Thank you. Rosemary Preisel. Oh, she's not speaking anymore. I'm sorry, she scratched. French Thompson, and then Tom Frankel's last.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, my city council. You know, I've come to this city council meeting hundreds of times. I've sat here and talked about downtown, issues, and I haven't seen 99% of you people there when I'm in the city council talking about the downtown issues. Where the hell have all you guys been then? I mean, literally, you guys are applauding on stupid things that you know nothing about because you've been brainwashed to believe this. Here, look at it. So you really are. So, you know, and besides that, Steve, self-important Steve Sutton over here, you know, you have decorum here. There's not supposed to be any applause and boos and hisses because then everybody goes out and does that. So why don't you guys come back to some decorum, which was, Solange Whitehead was in city councils where they never had that. This is the first city council I've been where they allow hissing and booing and applauding and all this kind of stuff. This is not public discourse decorum. You guys, you don't do that stuff. You really don't. I was a merchant on Main Street. I have clients that come into my store time and time again that literally say they couldn't find a place to park. So they went to Fashion Square, they went to Kierland, they went to the Quarter. So here's another little thing. You guys don't have a very long memory. That parking garage was built. When it was built, it was designed to have 2 more floors, and they spent a lot more money to build it so you could have 2 more floors on it. So the city's already spent that money. The city has just spent $1.7 million for this garage to be designed. You guys want to have the city throw away another $1.7 million by not having this thing built. But you know what? There was also a study in 2015, a parking study that indicated that there was more parking needed. Now, there weren't a whole lot of places they could put it. It was determined that time, and they put it on the bond. So this bond was passed based on the parking study that was done back then. So it was designed and built originally to do this, extra money spent. The city doesn't have any other property anywhere else to put in a parking garage. If you guys can show me a city piece of property they can put a parking garage, additional parking, show it to me because I've been looking for a long time. I've done more research on this parking needs than you guys have. I mean, if you guys really believe this, I'm not going to change your mind. I don't really even want to change your mind. I don't even want to change their mind. I just want to bring up facts that I know are true that aren't being, puffed out there and say, oh, it's going to hurt the Catholic Church. No, it's not going to hurt the Catholic Church. They've been around for 2,000 years. You're not going to hurt the Catholic Church with a building across the street. The Catholic Church owns parking structures.
Thank you. All right, so I think that's it with the, oh no, Tom Frankel, sorry, Tom.
Mayor, Council, I guess the last speaker, Happy New Year. I'm a commercial landlord in downtown Scottsdale primarily, but and probably in the vicinity of that parking structure own 15 pieces of real estate within a half mile of that parking structure, parcels on Main Street, 4 parcels in Civic Center Park. And I guess I'll start also on a wonderful note in the most recent one. I'm the landlord for Pinion Restaurant. And Pinion Restaurant would not have been built and opened and owned by Buck and Ryder. And I have watched it over the last month and a half and watched people who never knew there was a Civic Center Park find that there was a Civic Center Park and an AZ-88 and a hidden gem. And success to prior council, success to this council, success to staff, despite all the commotion and all the back and forth and political, things do happen that are good. And I guess I am speaking primarily, and in addition to the real estate, I own 3 restaurants, own and operate 3 restaurants in downtown South Scottsdale. So my daughter has the salon in Civic Center Park. I've been here 40 years. I live a half a mile from that parking structure. I have been usually on the side of being lambasted, is that a word, by activists who generally don't like that I do like growth, don't necessarily like change. Most recently, I own the, across from the schoolhouse, the parcel to the south 2-3 years ago. I came with a parcel to put a or a proposal to put a parking garage and a project there. And I basically had all of Old Town wanting to lynch me. And I came to the conclusion, you know what, it's not wanted, I'm not doing it there, I'm going to downsize it. That wasn't something that I necessarily, in my nature, but I heard loud and clear. I'd like to speak a little practically on this parking structure. And I was involved, and if I could have a couple more minutes just, I was involved in that bond process. This area was looked at as the south side of Old Town. It was designed originally, as the prior speaker said, to add things. I love the farmers market. I respect the mission. I respect the Old Town merchants. Practically to all of you, there's no one that cannot like those things. And if the reason is that everyone's against it because people feel it's going to destroy treasures and things we use, I agree with you. As a real estate developer, as a business owner, as a resident, I don't see it. I lived in Civic Center Park through 2.5 years of construction which destroyed an event venue I had in the park, Clayton on the Park, destroyed my office. It was hell, but guess what? I walk through that park now, that restaurant would have never relocated if the city council didn't disrupt my life, many people's lives. Many people didn't like it, some people like the old thing. The reality is it's used, people like it, and it works. And you could say the same thing about the canal projects, other things, that everything's controversial at some point. But where I really disagree with the people that think it's a mistake to be there is this. It is very hard to get money to build anything. 188 parking spaces, regardless if there's capacity needed now, let's say it's at 50% or 3/4, the money's appropriated for it. Very hard to do. It's designed, very hard to do. I believe it's needed. I have businesses there. It's not, in all respect to the traffic engineer or the systems guy, it's not that digitally we just have to find where the ample parking is. I do not buy that, okay? And if, let's say, give you the benefit of the doubt that it's not needed now. You put $40 million in a park. It's the most treasured part of the city. Why, if it's not needed now, why? And I don't believe it's going to kill the mission. I don't believe it's going to kill a farmer's market. Why would you not invest in the future in that the plans are in place? And Mayor Borowski, I have a lot of respect for you that you took me here, because you're the last person I would want to have to deal with what you have to deal with. But if there was a better solution, I'd love to hear it. I don't think there is.
Excuse me, thank you. And
Okay.
I so appreciate everything you're saying,
Okay.
and everyone has a different opinion, and that's,
Yeah.
that should be respected. But, the better solution part is probably the biggest point of all. There could be a better solution. So thank you for speaking to us tonight, Tom. I know you have a lot of longevity in the area, and we value your input. Thank you. All right. Moving right along, there is a motion to agendize an updated parking study, or to bring back a discussion about agendizing. Yeah, that's what the motion was, and there was a second. So I don't see any other speakers on this. Do you want to go ahead? Let's go ahead and take a vote. All those in favor of an updated parking study and agendizing this, please indicate your vote. All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for being here. I believe that concludes all of our business, and that failed, just so you know. And that's it. Motion to adjourn. All right, thank you very much.